Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was close to death even before the cancer diagnosis. That is a huge deal. It's what I've been trying to say for a long time. There was an underlying condition, Angela, before this cancer even came along. That underlying condition has not gone. That underlying condition is why Catherine was so close to dying. Breaking today. Shocking new information revealing just how close Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was to death before her cancer scare last year. Now, you'll know that I revealed on the show late last week that much has been forgotten about those underlying stomach conditions, which first resulted in Catherine receiving that positive cancer diagnosis. And this idea that they've somehow just gone away and that she is miraculously cured and that she should be attending every event as normal is for the birds. And that narrative, because remember, I've been the first on Catherine's health, given I was the one saying before the cancer diagnosis, everyone needs to shut up and be very careful because they're going to look stupid in a few weeks when they know what's really going on. That narrative followed up by Rebecca English, the very well-connected royal editor of the Daily Mail today. This is her front page piece, what I'm hearing about Kate's royal future after her sudden absence from Ascot and why it was a startling reminder of her grueling cancer battle. Now, we're going to get analysis on this from Angela Levin in just one moment. She's got the inside story. But before that, let me take you through Rebecca English's new reporting. She writes, she's been to hell and back over the last year and a half, in the words of one who knows her well. But while her physical recovery is still a work in progress, the Princess of Wales' illness has left her with a firm mental clarity. She knows more than ever what is important to her and that she won't be rushed on her journey back to full health. In the wake of the drama surrounding Catherine's mysterious non-appearance at Royal Ascot last week, I have been speaking to friends and associates about what is really going on behind the scenes and, most importantly, how she is. And while the truth is that no one still knows exactly why Catherine pulled out so suddenly, the incident has served to remind us that her return to duties remains something of a work in progress. Everyone I have spoken to has pointed out that it's easy to forget, given her starring role at last month's Trooping the Colours ceremony, as well as other appearances at the Order of the Garter ceremony at the new V&A storehouse, that this time last year, Catherine was undergoing chemotherapy after cancer was found following serious abdominal surgery in January. As I have previously revealed, the princess was seriously unwell in the run-up to her surgery in the first place. And while that is a story only for her to tell if she ever chooses to do so, I can say that from what I understand, she is fortunate to even be speaking of recovery. So while she may be glowing on the outside, the drama over her last-minute non-attendance at Royal Ascot last week is perhaps a timely reminder that the princess was really very poorly not so long ago. And it's why, to quote the princess herself, this year remains one of balance. On one level, I actually think this is a good reminder that she was really seriously ill last year and underwent significant periods of chemo. As anyone who has been through that experience will tell you, you can feel very unwell for a long time afterwards. It can take years to recover, one source said. That is why I understand we won't see the princess in public this week, but we are very likely to see her at Wimbledon, which starts on Monday, June the 30th, in her role as royal patron of the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club. She will also play a significant part in next month's French state visit at Windsor Castle, although I am still waiting to hear whether she will attend the state banquet at Windsor Castle. The last time she did so was in November 2023 for the state visit of the South Korean president. I understand she will take part in the official meet and greets for President Macron on July the 8th. Looking ahead to the autumn, while it cannot entirely be ruled out that the princess might undertake a foreign visit this year, I am told it is not expected as it stands. Kensington Palace's main focus will be on the Prince of Wales' environmental passion project, the Earthshot Awards in Brazil in November. Catherine could yet still join him. TBC is all that I can get at this stage, but my gut feeling is probably not. A source says she's quite strict now at working out what she needs to be at and what she doesn't. Some in recent months have been tempted to compare her slow return to royal duties with the King's continued heavy workload as head of state, despite still undergoing weekly treatment for cancer more than a year after his diagnosis. Those I speak to urge caution in comparing the two, stressing that every patient is different and that people have no way of absolutely knowing what is going on behind the scenes. It is, I would suggest, sensible advice. From what I do know, Charles, whose stoicism over this past year has indeed been nothing short of remarkable, is entirely supportive of his daughter-in-law's approach. He is, of course, a kind and sensible man, but he also knows more than anyone that moving forwards, the future of the historic institution he represents rests on getting this right. So, Angela Levin, this was very fascinating reporting from Rebecca English. It very much backs up what we were saying last week, but she goes one step further by making it public for the first time, Angela, that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was close to death even before the cancer diagnosis. That is a huge deal. It's what I've been trying to say for a long time. There was an underlying condition, Angela, before this cancer even came along. That underlying condition has not gone. That underlying condition is why Catherine was so close to dying. But very, very fascinating to hear it put in this way by Rebecca English, who, as you have pointed out in the past, effectively is given a lot of this stuff directly from the palaces for public consumption. What do you make of it, and what's the inside story here? If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Outspoken, please consider joining our thriving community over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but Substack is so important to me. It is a free speech platform. It protects me from big tech cancellation. Plus, you get to communicate directly with me. Head on over www.outspoken.live, enter your email address, and sign up today.
Well, it's incredibly moving, isn't it, when you discover that actually she nearly died before she was recognized to have cancer, and that the family behaved with such dignity. And she actually managed to get round and do things, obviously, in a way that you just couldn't imagine. And I think that to know this, that she did nearly died and that she was very lucky to stay alive, is just deeply upsetting that she'd actually been through this and what she has still gone through. To know what she will do when she's out and when she's not. I mean, when we've seen her these last few weeks, she looks absolutely stunning. She's got a wonderful smile. She looks incredibly happy. She looked as if there was not a single trouble, but she obviously had something that upset her and worried her. And I think, it's just terrible that she's got something hanging over her all the time that you think, I know lots of people with cancer have the same thing that, has it come back? Is it there? Often it isn't, and sometimes it is. And so she's not taking any risks, and she'll have tests and she'll get some sort of result. Sometimes it's really a small thing. Other times it is back again, then you have to be very careful. It's a very hard way to live, but to look how beautifully she manages it, both with the children and with her husband, and her smiling face and, looking stunning in the clothes, that she is remarkable, that she can take on all the demands of, the heir to the throne, and still sort of carry on. I find it astonishing. But we have to know that it wasn't so long ago. A year after what she's gone through is quick. And so you have to wait, as you've said, year after year until it takes a long time, if ever. And we will just see. It's very difficult, but apparently King Charles is very, very kind and doesn't want to push her and doesn't say, well, look, if I can do it, why don't you? He's actually given her to choose what she wants to do, when she wants to do it, and has enormous sympathy for her. I mean, he's in his 70s, and I think for somebody who's early 40s is just, very sad for him, because he adores her. He thinks she's wonderful. And she has been very, very well within the royal family. And just hope that she's caught something right at the right time, whether it's tiredness, whether it's something nasty, whether it's just a little thing, that actually you go home and you rest. And the thing is, she doesn't necessarily rest all the time because she does lots of research on all her things about young families and young children. And so she can actually keep going. But the way she and William look at each other is just delightful, isn't it? It's very loving, and they're still not anxious when they look at each other. They look at each other with a lovely smile.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, the most important thing is her health, Angela. I'm not for a single second saying or believing that she should be pushing herself any further. I
Oh no,
don't
I
think she
know.
should. I really don't.
No.
The only point I think I want to make, though, Angela, is that this is one of the reasons why I do say you can't necessarily trust what's coming out of the palaces, and you can't necessarily trust what's coming out of the royal rota. It's why I've been so determined to be an independent person who covers the royal family for all of these years, by the way, because very, very often, Angela, we are not told the truth, or we are not told the full story. And I knew back last year when Prince William pulled out of that memorial service for the King of Greece, the late King of Greece, that things were really bad. But of course, we were told, don't panic, nothing's wrong, this is all run of the mill. And it wasn't. You know, the fact is, Catherine was very close to death, things were very, very bad. And really, the fact that Rebecca English is only even just hinting at that now does explain why very often people can't necessarily trust what the official narrative is. Now, again, I just have to stress that's not to say that I don't believe that Catherine doesn't have a right to medical privacy. Of course she does, but this is always a fine line, isn't it, when you are dealing with senior members of the royal family, when you are dealing with the future king, and the current king or the future queen.
Yes, I think it is very difficult, but I feel that we must allow them to have as much quiet and privacy as they want, because it could make her more upset. I'm not saying anything against you. I'm just saying that, you don't want her to feel more upset than she is. And actually, what it does show is that the royal family, the whole monarchy, is very much loved by this country and all the countries that come under King Charles's age. And it's just very difficult because you feel it's almost part of your own family, and you don't want to feel, oh, this, I must get going and I want to do lots of things, but you do worry about it. But we can't know the details. We just can't. And I think it's difficult for them and it's difficult for us. And I don't know how you can get around that. You just have to say what you feel up to a certain line and then, stop there. You don't want to make them too unhappy themselves.
But first, these days, we're living through economic whiplash, soaring prices, vanishing savings, and headlines that seem designed to confuse more than inform. Now, we're told this is all normal, right? That history's been rewritten for our own good and that embracing these changes is the only path forward. But every outlet tells a different version of reality, and the so-called fact checkers are just enforcing the approved narrative. Luckily, there's a solution. It's ground news, hands down, the easiest way to stay informed. It cuts through all the bias and spin so you can actually see what's going on and make up your mind. I have it on my phone and in my bookmarks online because it's become so essential to my daily life. And I want you to see for yourself at ground.news/outspoken. Oh, by the way, huge discount for you today, which I'll tell you about in just one moment. But first, I want to show you this incredible website and app in action. So we're going to use that story of Donald Trump agreeing to cut tariffs on UK auto, steel and aluminium, or aluminum, if we're talking from an American point of view, as part of a trade deal with Britain, one that could reshape global trade and has sparked debate on both sides of the political aisle. And you can see clearly in one place over 500 sources covering this story. But what Ground News does is then instantly show how the story is being covered by the media, broken down by whether it leans left or right, the bias distribution chart it is called, and I love it. Then if you scroll down, you can see every headline about the story along with the political bias and ownership of the publication. Now, in this case, most of the coverage is from political outlets in the centre, but here's where it gets interesting. 49% of the sources come from outlets owned by giant media conglomerates, so no wonder the narratives feel so coordinated. When looking at the headlines, the left covered the story with skepticism. Wired fixated on the struggling reputation of Jaguar and framed the deal as a potential way to resurrect the brand. Bloomberg chose vague language, calling it a framework, which subtly questions whether the deal is even real. But the coverage on the right-leaning outlets, far more confident, with GB News celebrating a major victory for UK auto manufacturers, and the New York Sun calling it a full and comprehensive trade deal that strengthens US-UK ties. Now, my favourite feature of Ground News is the blind spot feed. This services upwards of 20 stories daily that receive the majority of coverage from one side of the political spectrum. If you love the news like I do, the blind spot feed is the best way to get a balanced perspective on what is happening. Go to ground.news/outspoken or just scan the QR code if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, and you will get 40% off the same Vantage plan I use for unlimited access. So that's ground.news/outspoken for 40% off. But now, back to the show. I guess I would just stress as well that this is not something new. This is not something new. The late Queen's father was dying and the public did not know about it.
Neither did he.
Yeah. Prince Philip.
You didn't even know. They didn't tell him.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Yeah. But I think he knew he wasn't well, didn't he? But yes, I know what you're saying. It was almost like protect him from himself. But certainly Prince Philip and the late Queen Elizabeth II had been battling with cancer for many years, very, very various forms. And they were absolutely adamant that their health issues were not the concern of the public. So this is a royal tradition in a way, but it's an interesting one because I think we live in different times. And the problem is, Angela, that when that was the strategy that was taken by Kensington Palace last year, we saw what happened. It spiraled out of control. All of these conspiracies started to become mainstream news. People were suggesting that Catherine was dead, or that there was an abusive relationship, or that they were broken up, and that when Catherine was seen in public, it wasn't really her, and that was being spread by that awful Christopher Boosie, the head of the Sussex Squad, Stephen Colbert, close media ally of Harry and Meghan on CBS, went on air at that really difficult time and thought that was the appropriate moment to speak publicly about the rumours regarding Rose Hanbury. This is the problem. If you leave a vacuum nowadays, I just feel like things can get worse. So it's a very fine line. And I think the way that the late Queen and the late Prince Philip used to deal with things was obviously very much of their time, and it showed that they were stoic individuals. And, I'm not criticizing it for a single second. I sort of think it's wonderful that we just think they fought for as long as they could, and then they slipped off into old age, and no one ever knew because they weren't victims. They didn't want to be victims. They didn't ever want people to feel sorry for them. It just wasn't how they lived. However, I just think we're in slightly different times here, and a little bit more transparency, I don't think, is a bad thing.
I think there's a lot of transparency you need now, because you go around with your phone, you've got the click, you can take pictures all the time, but I think the late King and Queen, Prince and Queen, life wasn't like that. It wasn't easy to just collect information, but now it's very easy and people demand. But I think King Charles has actually tried to handle this, and we've learnt an awful lot about what he's suffering from, except actually what part of his body has got the cancer. And I think that it hasn't upset too many people that they don't know exactly what, but they do know how many times he goes to the doctor, how he's feeling, all those things we have been told. So actually, I think it is different, and they are trying. And I think they hadn't had enough experience of doing that with someone who was really ill for the public. And I think that that would be done quite differently another time. Like you said, that she's walking around, somebody's walking around to look like her and she's dead. No, she's not. All those things. People will find out, they'll just dig away. But you need to give them a bit more of what they want, but not everything.
Not everything. And I do think the balance has been right. But all I would say, Angela, trying to put Catherine's last minute disappearance from Royal Ascot down to a communication error and sort of
Yes,
blaming
yes,
Royal
that was
Ascot for
annoying.
releasing the characters. Well, I just don't think it's intellectually honest.
No, I think that was annoying to do that because they're pretending we don't really know, we don't understand, or we think that all the people who made lists made a terrible mistake. I didn't believe that at all. But they came back with more of a reality, a bit too late, didn't they? And I expect they just sort of panicked a bit. They're human and they can panic and get it a bit wrong. But they just made a mistake about that.
Angela, I really want to ask you about this story that has broken about Prince Harry
Oh,
extending an olive branch to King Charles and Prince William by inviting them to the next Invictus Games. Foster had a take on this on X, which I wanted to share with you, Angela, writing, Harry and Meghan have screwed themselves again. In their usual dishonourable fashion, Harry scheduled Invictus Games in Birmingham to clash with the Queen's birthday and hopefully steal her thunder. Now Invictus is demanding Harry see it to the royal family is at the games. But guess what, stupid Harry? The royal family's out is that the schedule conflicts with the Queen's birthday celebrations. Lol. Let's see how you wiggle out of this one. And it certainly does feel, Angela, like Harry is trying to jump his family again, all publicly, Angela, because he revealed this to the newspapers before actually even sending the email to Charles and William's private secretaries, which just feels totally outrageous.
yeah. It's one of these invitations that you ask someone to hold their place and their diary. But this, I think, is a very, very spiteful thing because he's so keen to get them down and to beat them and to win that if he invites them now and they can't come, they can say, well, this is how they treat me, like my father won't speak to me. But interestingly, he didn't invite Camilla, and he didn't invite Catherine. So he just invited the two men. Now, if you think they're going to leave him and not go, it's most unlikely. But I thought it was really, really nasty thing to do. And Camilla will be 80 next year.
Which is
And
significant.
I'm which is very significant. But she loves parties, and birthday parties are prepared very well in advance. And how he's invited them for the last day, which is obviously the most important day, which is actually on her birthday. So he's going to try and use it to blame his family that they're not being nice to him, even when he's doing this and the Invictus game is very important. But I hope that they understand that they've got the right to say no, and we won't think very badly of them. And in any case, he shouldn't be talking, or Charles won't talk to him until he's come out and stopped going to another court to try and attack the Daily Mail. And I think that he won't talk to Harry before that because he doesn't want to fight look as if he's fighting with his own sort of uh, life that he has, and he can't do that.
And Angela, you've got some views too on these articles that have been written in the past couple of days looking ahead to a King William.
Yes.
So lots of discussion about his slimmed down monarchy, the change that he will make to the coronation, the fact that he wants to lean more heavily on Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, and Zara Tindall and Beatrice and Eugenie, the princess daughters of Prince Andrew, even though he doesn't want to make them formal working members of the royal family. What's behind this, Angela? Why is there all of a sudden all of this discussion about William's future reign?
Well, I think it's jolly rude, actually, because it was his birthday. Maybe they thought this was a good way, but I don't think it's a good way for the king, who is working very hard and doing very well, considering, and actually going through the detail of what friends of William would like to happen. It's not him. It's people who are around him. And I think that they should have been quiet and they shouldn't hear details of they don't like this is what he's doing. They don't like people on the balcony because there'll be too few. And anyway, it's very old fashioned. They don't like something else that's very old fashioned. Well, of course, he can do exactly what he wants once he is king. But I don't think they had the right to say that now when he's still working very hard and well, it seems astonishingly well, despite everything that's happening. And I think it's very spiteful. And we don't know whether any of it is true, allegedly. And, you know, who knows? And I think it's really nasty. And I think the papers that do that should really think again because here is our great king, and they don't have to spoil things for him in his last years and pretend that he's made a mess of it, and they don't want anything like he's had. And I just think that's completely wrong. It's not anything, but it's actually the whole feeling of what he's done, and they want to wipe it out and they can't wait. Well, you know, please stop it. I've read several of these things lately, and they really make me upset and angry because, you know, he's doing very well, thank you. So, and William, of course, will do what he wants, but he doesn't have to tell us now, and none of his aides need to tell us now. And I think that sometimes they're just making it up because they don't know what story to tell on that day, the next day, and so they just go backwards. Because if you notice that a lot of the things about the royals are from the past at the moment, because there's not so much to say. And Harry and Meghan are the only sort of really exciting story to write about. So they then go backwards and write about what happened, you know, 20, 30 years ago, just to fill the pages. And that's very annoying.
And Angela, what do you make of the fact that King Charles has been pretty magnanimous by deciding to sign up to make a documentary with Netflix, also featuring Idris Elba? Quite a lot of people saying, wow, like you hated Netflix because of the way that they portrayed you in The Crown as sort of a terrible husband and a terrible father. But also others saying this is actually a bit of a victory for King Charles over Meghan and Harry, because of course Meghan and Harry hoped that Netflix were on their side, not the side of the royal family. So maybe actually this is a PR coup for the king.
Yes, that's right. But Iris Elba, I met him on one of these King Trusts meetings,
Oh,
and
yes.
he said to me, you know, he was talking absolutely how wonderful the king was and how amazing he was and how he's given him his life. He couldn't have done it before, and he wants to put some back. So he will help him in any way. And he's going to think and think and think until he finds something that's really worthwhile to do. And I wonder whether this is it, because it's also going to be about the 50th anniversary of, well, it was the Prince's Trust and now it's the King's Trust. Once he became king, they changed the title, and how it's worked. And I met lots of other people there too, and they were all obviously pro the king because they were there getting awards. But the amazing part of it is that they were all people who had very difficult lives or they had no money in their life and they didn't have parents and all those very difficult things. And he's helped them and he's given them a chance and he's given them money, not just lessons in how to do whatever they wanted. And they couldn't thank him enough. And I think if you see those talks that they say and the thank yous and their willingness to show him how good they could be, it's fascinating. I think loads of people will watch it and it will be really interesting. And it won't be me about the king. It will be him and it will be Idris in it, but it will be out about all sorts of other people who actually can show that they were living in the street and they are druggies and all that. And he helped him. And I think it's a wonderful thing for the king. And I think as well, they don't like the BBC. They were furious. Do you remember I said to you some weeks ago that the way that they allowed Harry to talk to them without telling the royal family that they would actually publish it very early at 6:30 in the evening, when it was supposed to be at 10 p.m. with just for 2 minutes, and they spoke to him for a long time. And I did tell you that they were absolutely furious and they would try and do something. I don't know whether this is the something that they decided on, but I do think that they didn't want to give the chance to the BBC to have such a wonderful engagement.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? The King and Idris Elba will have more impact with Netflix rather than the BBC, because that's where we're at now. It might be the national broadcaster, but it's a dying broadcaster. And actually, it's treated the royal family terribly over the years. Angela Levin.
Although he hated that with Crown, they're now getting their own back. I don't know, but it sounds like it. And I'm very, very pleased.
Revenge is sweet. Angela Levin, our Royal Mastermind, thank you so much. And of course, if you want first access to the uncancelled Royal After Show every weekday, first, live or on demand, then just sign up to my Substack, www.outspoken.live. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.